Come now to Amendment 19, Lord Moylan.
My Lords, I rise to move Amendment 19 in my name and to speak excuse me, to the other amendments in my name in this group. They cover two topics. I shall try to deal with them fairly briefly, but they are very important. Even if the speech is short, the resonance and consequence of the amendments is long. There is going to be a cost to the revenue certainty mechanism, and the cost is going to be distributed to airline passengers through their airfares. How much is it going to be? Well, we are not in the dark on that subject because the cost-benefit analysis produced by the Department makes a stab at this. It says, overall, the revenue certainty mechanism, I'm referring to paragraph 4.23, overall, the revenue certainty mechanism, when covering a limited but reasonable amount of non-HEFA SAF volumes, is likely to result in a small impact on ticket prices. Depending on non-HEFA SAF prices and whether the levy costs are offset by fuel cost savings, the likely impact on ticket prices is between minus £1.50 and plus £1.50 on average per year. Now, the only things of absolute fixity in that sentence are the numbers and the per year. Almost everything else in it consists of a caveat. And I do accept a statement, a forecast of this type will have to be caveated to some extent. I want to explore some of the caveats, in fact, in the next group as well, not merely here. So what are we talking about when we are talking about non-HEFA SAF? And I have an amendment to explore that in the last group. But at this stage, I want to know how far the government is willing to go to commit itself on the £1.50. Let's take it's on the negative, it's on the upside. So a cost of £1.50 per ticket. Bear in mind that £1.50 per ticket is not the cost of SAF. That £1.50 is the cost of non-HEFA SAF produced using the revenue certainty mechanism in this bill. SAF is already in use, and it is being paid for by airlines, and it is painfully expensive, much more expensive than it was expected to be. It's already having an impact on airlines' fuel bills that is quite significant. That is not included in the £1.50. The £1.50 is purely for the mechanism that sits in this bill. But how firm is the government willing to be on this? Because I think this is of crucial significance to the public at large. The public at large would like to see more sustainable aviation fuel. I accept that the noble Baroness, Lady Jones of Moulscombe, who's no longer in her place, regards that as a chimera. But the public are happy to see it, but they want to know what it's going to cost them. And if we're going to hold out a prospect, as the government is, of a maximum cost of £1.50 per ticket for this, and that's a significant sum for a family of four going on holiday, then they would like to know that the government stands behind it. Airlines that I have spoken to suggest the cost is going to be much closer to £10 a ticket. And so the government needs to give some justification as to the £1.50. That's one of the two topics that these amendments cover. If I move on to the second, I have to apologise in a sense to noble lords because it's of a more general character. In some ways, it would have been nice if it could have been contrived to come at the beginning of our debate this evening. But the rigidities of our numerical system, our system for numbering amendments and marshalling them, means that it is going to appear at this late stage. And I appreciate not everybody is interested in it, but I can assure noble lords that outside this committee there is a large audience that is very interested in this question, an audience of people who believe still, to some extent, in capitalism and indeed in the principles of Adam Smith and the notion of comparative advantage. Because what this is asking for is that government make some stab at assessing our comparative advantage in wishing to be a leader in this field. This is, after all, a measure which is designed to make us a domestic producer rather than an importer, and a globally leading producer of non-heifer SAF compared to the rest of the world. It is, as I said at second reading, an industrial policy bill rather than a net zero bill. The SAF mandate was a net zero measure. This is an industrial policy measure. It's a decision by government that this stuff has to be produced here and not imported, a decision by government that we should be a leader in this field. And the question is, what on earth do we have by way of comparative advantage that the government should have alighted upon this particular economic activity as one in which we are to be, can be, and it is suitable that we should be a leader in the field? Do we have access to particularly rich streams of feedstock, for example? If non-heifer SAF is to be produced, some of it at least, from old cabbages collected from people's kitchens, are our cabbages better than somebody else's cabbages? Are wood cuttings and so forth, do they have a particular advantage, a greater richness of oil-bearing quality that puts us ahead of the field? I suspect the answer to that is not. Is our refining capacity cutting edge and world-leading for turning these things into a usable fuel? Well, my lords, I don't know a great deal about that. I see there are noble lords in the committee who do, I suspect, know a great deal more about it. But what I see as an ordinary reader of the newspapers is that we're closing down our refining capacity as fast as we can. Far from being a leader, we are falling behind. And, of course, this is a process which is going to be very heavy on electricity usage. I think nobody denies that. And yet we have, no doubt in the interests of saving the planet, I won't go into that further at the moment, but we have contrived in the interests of saving the planet to have the most expensive electricity in the civilized world. Do we have skills, particularly, an existing workforce, which none of these things, it seems to me, is apparent. So what I'm asking, and I don't think it's an unreasonable request, is that before the government launches us and taxpayers' money and airline passengers' money onto this reckless scheme of being a world leader in something for which we have no apparent comparative advantage, that they set out the economic case for doing so. And it's been inserted here. The contrivance, of course, is it's inserted as a commencement blocker. The bill can't commence until this has been done. But I'm not wedded to that. That is merely a way of inserting it into the debate. But I do think the government owes it to the public to have a better case and a better argument as to why they should be doing this. We are not, after all, this is not our first attempt to produce SAF. We have had, in the last few years, schemes such as the Advanced Fuel Funds, the Green Fuels Green Skies Fund, the Future Fuels for Flight and Freight Competition, and others. But it's still the case, despite those, that around 90% of the SAF used in this country is still imported. Why has this not taken off domestically already with that level of support if we have the sort of advantage that we should be able to bring to bear, and will make a success of it this time? I, at least, my lords, would like to know. I beg to move.
Amendment proposed. After clause 14, insert the following new clause as printed on the marshal.